Hi there, my name is Rodney and I'm here today with Tri-Cities Community Television at the Gathering Place in Lee Square on the unceded Coast Salish territories. I'm here today with Kathleen Yang, who's a wonderful friend of mine and also a community organizer. So thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much for asking me to be here.
I'm so pleased because I know both you and I are really passionate about public engagement, specifically around students. And so I was just really interested in sort of like introducing you to our audience, and because I know there's a lot of youth out there who want to be involved, but there's, as I like to call it, the quicksand of hesitation that often prevents youth from going from that place of hesitation to action. So can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been organizing for the last 3 years. I just graduated from SFU with my degree in political science. And I would say that I first got involved in really being socially minded and being more socially conscious in my grade 12 year when I took Social Justice 12, also known as Global Studies 12. And I organized our very first Social Justice Week, and we learned a lot about social issues in the world. And from there, it's just been a whirlwind. And when I got to SFU, I knew I really wanted to be involved. And I didn't really know how to get involved. I knew I was really passionate about social justice. And I knew I was really passionate about advocacy. And it took a while, I think, for me to find what was right for me in terms of finding the right organization and the right fit. But I mean, here I am today. And I think it just, as soon as you get involved and you're able to take that first step and find an organization that you really fit with and that you really love, and you'll know when you feel it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's how I first got involved, was when I met at the time, the external relations officer. I knew I wanted to get more involved in studying women in politics, as I was a political science student. And so I went to the Community Voter Congress in 2013, and that's where I met Sade, and who also, we had shared such an interest in talking about women in politics and talking about policies, and she was like, why don't you just come to the advocacy committee with me? And I was like, I don't really know what this is, but it sounds interesting, and it just snowballed from there.
It sounds to me that like mentorship played an important role in you sort of like transforming who you are.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for Sade and her encouragement and support, and so many other women in my life who really took the time to hear what my needs were and what I was interested in, and to connect me with the right organizations and the right people to kind of make the things happen. And I mean, it can be really hard in a place like when you're on a community campus, when there's not really a central hub for folks to go. It can be really hard to find the people that will connect you to where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
And so mentorship was huge, definitely.
I know, like with my own experiences, that I was very, very lucky to meet a lot of really great people who really, like you said, believed in me and gave me the resources so that I could do the things that I do now. And I found it also really amusing, and I don't know if you found, like, after a while you sort of become a mentor as well, because there's not a lot of mentorship opportunities or people who are mentoring youth. Either you sort of like fall into the right crowd accidentally, but do you find now that all of a sudden people are coming to you and you're like, but I'm just Kathleen? Well, no, you're wonderful, but
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it depends on the context, but I definitely think that, within the Tri-Cities, we're trying to look for new opportunities, and it's kind of like that when you move to a new area, like for when you move into a new area, when you go to a new school, you're trying to look for the new opportunities, you're trying to look for the people that can connect to you, and sometimes, there's definitely ways to quicken that process, but it's definitely a process. And I definitely find that even right now, I'm still trying to figure out, what my next step is going to be, what my next project's going to be. And folks come along you do meet folks along the way, as like you said, when you start getting involved, you meet more folks who are also looking to get involved, so you're trying to get them involved, and you're trying to build the connections within your community. And I mean, I think definitely there aren't a lot of mentorship opportunities, but there are also not a lot of opportunities in general for folks to get involved. And so, and it kind of becomes an interesting dynamic when you're constantly trying to find new people to get involved, but there's also a group of people who are constantly trying to get involved, but can't admit that there's just like you said, that somehow there's like that barrier that somehow prevents people from finding the right organizations. And it does take time. And I would just really encourage folks to not give up and to keep looking and to kind of keep going to different events and seeing what you like and what you're interested in. Yeah, does that answer your question? I feel like there's so much that we could talk about in terms of youth engagement and getting involved in general.
Especially in the Tri-Cities, because I know that's, and like, where does one begin? I know, like, first things we have to deal, and we've heard this a lot in the news recently, and I saw that CBC, they're talking a lot about like a lot of youth have to deal with precarity now. Like, we're working a lot of contract jobs. So how do you balance that with the fact that in order to organize in a community, you need resources, and outside of like maybe the big name nonprofits like Amnesty International, for youth like ourselves who have a very specific vision of what we'd like to see happen within the cities that we live in, where do we go when, you know, we have to balance precarity, we have to balance burnout, we have to balance, you know, a lack of mentors? Like, what do we do, Kathleen?
That's a huge question, and I don't know that I have the exact answer right now. As I think for a lot of young people, and myself included, that's a huge question that we're all thinking about. How do we keep going? How do we make the changes we want to see in the world? And I mean, you know, for myself, I think even organizing at SFU, there's a lot of barriers that prevent youth involvement. And I think it is up to the institutions that currently exist, that are established, and you know, that have the resources to be able to really take the risk on some of our young people and make that investment, and to give us the freedom and the resources to kind of, you know, test out some of the projects that we've been, you know, waiting for, that we're passionate about. And I think when I was in high school, when I was in grade 12, I was very fortunate to have that opportunity. Yeah. The freedom and the resources is such a huge gift for young people. Yeah. Amidst, like you said, the precarious work environment, precarious situations that we're often in, especially with housing. You know, I know we have the Evergreen line, but you know, there's still areas that aren't exactly super accessible via public transportation. And that's another barrier that prevents youth involvement. And so, by having you know, designated positions for youth, and by youth I don't just mean high school students, I don't just mean, you know, elementary school students, but you know, for youth between the ages of 18 and 24, between the ages of 18 and 30, and young people are an ever-changing definition, but I mean, to have a diversity in perspectives is what we're really looking for. And I think that's what a lot of organizations are looking for nowadays. And within this precarious environment, it's extremely difficult for young people, as we already talked about, where we're trying to find the right organization, but also trying to deal with, you know, trying to find work, trying to balance school. There's so many things going on. And a lot of organizations where I know I'm really looking for some talented youth who are passionate about the issues that they care about, and you know, just having these connections be more established would be like super important. And I mean, again, I don't have all the answers for that question.
I don't expect you to answer, because I don't have to be there.
I know, this is something we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you balance it all? And especially if it's burnout.
Yeah.
And burnout's a huge thing in the nonprofit sector.
And I know, like, you're talking about burnout, and I think meaningful engagement as well, because I find oftentimes there are opportunities, but we find, and I think we both experience this, where we get into these positions and we think that we have the resources, but really we're just tokens. And so, because I know that can be really, like, it's disenfranchising or really, really disappointing for a lot of youth who, like, view certain opportunities as like a way to move up, but then suddenly they realize they're just there as a figurehead. So how do we? What would your advice be to, as I guess both of us have to deal with these sort of like terrible situations? How do you move forward?
Again, extremely difficult question. I definitely think, on the one hand, you really got to work with what you have, and in an environment where like there's a lot of scarce resources, especially when you're doing organizing. You gotta really work with what you have, and stay strong and stay true to yourself, and remember to keep the people who support you close, the people who brought you here even closer, and you know, that's kind of at least a starting point. And you know, everyone does the best that they can. I remember when I was doing a program with one of my friends, she told me a story about a little hummingbird. And that's probably, I haven't really thought about that story for such a long time, but the way the story goes is that there's a fire in the forest, and all the animals are running towards the river stream, and they're like, our home is burning down, and all of a sudden there's this little hummingbird who is just, in its tiny beak, filling up the water from its little beak, then throwing it on the flames, coming back, and then throwing it on the flames again. And they're like, hummingbird, what are you doing? Like, don't you know, like, the fire is going to burn down the forest. Like, why are you even bothering? And the hummingbird's just like, but I'm doing the best that I can. And really, at the end of the day, that's all we can do, is do the best that we can. And I mean, there's a lot of definitely barriers for organizing, especially as women, as people of color, as young people. But the resilience factor and the ability to take care of yourself and going at your own pace. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have really high expectations and achieve it all before we graduate. To graduate within 4 years, but to go at your own pace is okay, and to have your own journey is okay because you're doing the best you can.
Yeah, I think those are such powerful words, and I think a wonderful story. And I think, and as you sort of exemplify, youth often don't see themselves as resources when really we do have connections, we do have knowledge. And I think what we can see today with everything that you've been sharing with us, that we just need to look within. We can find ourselves in really difficult positions, but really we have each other. You have me, I have you.
Yeah, exactly. and that's how we first met, right? I remember when we met at one of our mutual friends gatherings, and we were talking about our past experiences organizing, and we were just like, oh my gosh, we should collaborate together and work together. And I think that's also really important when we're looking within our own friend group at the very least, and the people that are around us. We don't necessarily have to volunteer with some larger organization or some larger institution. Sometimes if you have an idea and you may not necessarily have the resources, you just gotta work with what you can. But you gotta work with what you have and be creative. And again, it's super busy and it's not easy. But I mean, sometimes you just gotta take the risk and trust that the people who are encouraging you and supporting you are actually saying something important and actually mean what they're saying when they say that they believe in you.
And I think those are wonderful words to end on. So thank you so much for joining me today. And for those at home, believe in yourself. It's been Rodney from Tri-Cities Community Television. Thank you.